Good morning, I'm Gretchen Hall. We're coming to you live this 7th day of August. It is a Thursday, bringing you Morning Matters because your mornings matters. Get to the stories that matter today. Following a Supreme Court ruling that found the impeachment articles unconstitutional, 19 senators voted as a supermajority to archive the case filed against Vice President Sara Duterte. Lawmakers in both chambers of Congress have reacted strongly to the Senate's decision to archive the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara. House Prosecutor Joel Chua, for one, vowed to continue seeking justice and accountability, calling the Senate's move a denial of due process to the public. And the camp of Vice President Sara Duterte stated that their focus remains on submitting comments to the Supreme Court regarding the House of Representatives' motion for reconsideration, regardless of the Senate's decision to archive the impeachment complaint. Welcome to our program, Morning Matters, where we talk about the issues you need to know for the rest of your day. Now, first on the agenda, the Senate has voted to archive the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte following a Supreme Court ruling declaring the articles unconstitutional. Here is the story.
Senate President Chis Escudero made his stance crystal clear.
I vote yes to the motion, Mr. President. I vote yes to the rule of law, yes to the Constitution, yes to the supremacy of the Supreme Court in interpreting it.
What does that mean? There will be no impeachment trial, at least for now, against Vice President Sara Duterte, as the articles have been archived or set aside. Escudero himself voted in favor of shelving it, saying the Supreme Court's ruling was clear, that the case was unconstitutional, void from the beginning, and therefore there was no legal basis for the Senate to proceed.
Fidelity to the Constitution, Mr. President, must prevail even when it is unpopular, inconvenient, or misunderstood. In fact, Mr. President, distinguished colleagues, it must prevail especially when it is unpopular, when it is inconvenient and misunderstood.
Escudero also took a jab at critics, questioning the Supreme Court's decision or the so-called legal experts who act as if they're better than the High Court.
Miyembro po ba sila ng Super Supreme Court? Sa pagkakaalam ko po, iisa lamang ang Korte Suprema. Are you truly for accountability or simply anti-Duterte? Do you truly respect and want to preserve the Constitution or you simply hate the Vice President?
Escudero also had a reminder for the House of Representatives.
The Senate is not your playground to run after your political enemies. We are not an accomplice in any grand scheme. While others may be willing to play your game, I am not. I will never bow to a mob.
His position was echoed by Senate President pro tempore Jingoy Estrada.
If we cannot obey the law, do we still deserve to be called lawmakers?
Even Senator Amy Marcos, an ally of VP Duterte in the Senate, took swipes at the House and at the House Speaker Martin Romualdez.
Kesa inaatupag ninyong palitan ang pinili ng taong bayan, binoto at minahal. Bakit di nyo nalang palitan ang tao, kayo naman lang ang pumili? Ayaw paawat ng iba sa kakaflex. Ano kaya kung yung speaker nyo na lang ang paltan nyo? Kaya nyo yan.
Sibling Senators Alan and Pia Cayetano also agreed to archive the articles.
Ayaw natin maging presidente si Vice President Sara, talunin nyo na lang sa 2028. Ngayon, kung talagang may ginawa siyang masama, edi impeach pero sa tamang paraan.
But not everyone agreed. Senators Risa Hontiveros, Kiko Pangilinan, and Tito Soto opposed the move. They argued that the Supreme Court's decision isn't final and that the Senate should have waited.
It is our institution which, in the words of colleagues, killed the articles of impeachment. People must have the power to make the highest rulers accountable.
Ang boto na no ay hindi nangangahulugan na hindi natin nirerespeto ang pasya o kapangyarihan ng Korte Suprema. Lalo-lalo na't hindi pa ito pinal.
The Supreme Court now has the chance to rectify these errors in its decision. So I was hoping to table the motion so that we can let us afford them this opportunity for the benefit of future impeachment processes. All we needed to do was wait a little.
Senator Ping Lacson abstained. Senator Erwin Tulfo, meanwhile, supported the archiving of the impeachment articles but issued a challenge to VP Duterte.
Kung tunay po na walang kasalanan si VP Duterte, dapat siya mismo ang manguna sa pagbubukas ng lahat ng dokumento, paggamit ng budget at mga hakbangin niya bilang pangalawang Pangulo.
The Senate's decision to archive the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte has drawn strong reactions from lawmakers in both chambers of Congress. Here is a report.
Several lawmakers voiced strong reactions following the Senate's decision to archive the impeachment complaint against Vice President Sara Duterte. Senator Alan Peter Cayetano described the complaint as dead. However, he clarified that the matter is not entirely closed, citing pending motions for consideration before the Supreme Court. If the court reverses its decision, Cayetano said the complaint could be revived.
Patay na pwedeng buhayin. So kung tinable, buhay yon na pwedeng patayin. Sinang tabi lang. Pagka in-archive mo na, patay na yon if the Supreme Court reverses itself.
Senate Minority Leader Tito Soto also believes that the impeachment complaint is now dead. He pointed out alleged factual errors in the Supreme Court's decision declaring the impeachment unconstitutional. Senator Joel Villanueva, meanwhile, explained that his vote to archive came without prejudice, noting that the Supreme Court's ruling is not yet final due to the pending motions.
Whether or not you will adhere to the decision of the Supreme Court. And the word for the day perhaps is honor. Diba? Honor the Supreme Court as the final interpreter of our laws, our Constitution. It is without prejudice to the Supreme Court reversing its decision. So hindi namin binabaliwala yung motion for reconsideration at yung mga mahistrado ng Korte Suprema, mismong sila alam nila yon na may MR pa. But then again, they keep on pounding on the word immediately executory.
Over in the House of Representatives, lawmakers pushed back against the Senate's move. House Prosecutor Joel Chua said they remain committed to seeking justice and accountability and described the Senate's decision as a denial of due process to the public. Akbayan Party List Representative Percy Sendanya said the fight will continue, adding that the Vice President has yet to be held accountable for her alleged wrongdoings. Representative Chel Jokno added that the Senate action only deepened what he called a crisis of accountability. For now, the House's motion asking the Supreme Court to reconsider its ruling remains pending.
Before the Senate could begin its debate on the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte, various groups rallied outside the Senate building. They demanded that the impeachment trial proceed, insisting that the controversy surrounding the Vice President's use of confidential funds must be addressed. Now, inside the Senate gallery, a few audience members were escorted out after flashing thumbs down signs during the voting session. They described the gesture as a protest against what they viewed as the Senate's failure to uphold justice and accountability. The protesters vowed to continue pressing for impeachment and to closely monitor the Supreme Court, hoping it will reverse its earlier ruling.
Dapat the trial should proceed forthwith upang magpanawagan sa ating mga senador na gampanan nila yung constitutional duties po nila.
Ang pinaka-importante dito sa impeachment ay to hold high officials of government accountable for whatever violation of our Constitution.
The office of the Vice President, Sara Duterte, appears to be unaware of her current whereabouts. In a press conference, OVP spokesperson Ruth Castelo initially said the information is still needs to be verified when asked about Duterte's current location. This as the Senate Impeachment Court held hearings on Duterte's case after the Supreme Court ruled on her impeachment case as unconstitutional. Castelo then said Duterte might be in her office but gave no confirmation.
We'll get back to you on that. Who knows? She can just be right in the office. A few steps away.
After the OVP failed to verify Duterte's whereabouts, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro said they received information that the Vice President may be heading to Kuwait, but noted no travel authority has been filed yet.
Wala po tayong informasyon, tinawagan po natin ang Office of the Executive Secretary sa ating pagkakaalam at sa ating ibinigay. Ang pinakahuling travel authority na inaibigay sa kanya ay simula July 5 hanggang July 28 kung saan po siya nag-travel papuntang the Netherlands at South Korea. Meron po tayo nabalitaan at ito'y naitanong sa atin na meron daw na balak ang Vice Presidente na pumunta sa Kuwait, no? Sa Kuwait ng August 8. Pero as we speak, wala pa pong naihahain na request for travel authority ang Vice Presidente sa sinasabing pagbabiyahe.
Meanwhile, Vice President Sara's defense team acknowledged the Senate's decision. However, they stated that their focus remains on submitting their comment in compliance with the Supreme Court's order, which stems from the motion for reconsideration filed by the House of Representatives. Up next in his latest podcast, President Bongbong Marcos insisted he is not working for numbers, while also addressing questions about the funding for social programs he detailed in his fourth State of the Nation address. Don't go away. More on that when Morning Matters returns. Welcome back. You're still with us right here on Morning Matters on One News. In the third episode of his podcast, President Marcos insisted that he is not working for the numbers. Just last week, Okta Research released a survey showing a rise in the trust and performance ratings of the president. He even surpassed the approval ratings of Vice President Sara Duterte.
Hindi ganun ang approach natin. We don't work according to surveys, not really. What we do is there a way, pag may nagre-reklamo, sinasabi, mahabang pila sa PhilHealth, anong pwede natin gawin para mas maginhawa? Yung mga seniors na kailangan tulungan natin, o sige, bigyan natin ng diskwento dun sa mga sa mga tren. O tapos yung commuters, kasi araw-araw yan eh. So, anything that we can do to make things easier.
In his latest SONA, he mentioned zero billing in hospitals, more learning centers, and other social programs. But the question remains, do we have the money for all of that? President Marcos sees no problem with the country borrowing money to support these programs.
So it's not an absolute number. Like any corporation, may balance sheet yan. The balance sheet has assets and liabilities. Pag tinitignan lamang yung utang, tinitignan lang yung liabilities. Tignan niyo yung asset. Dadagdagan yung asset natin.
The Securities and Exchange Commission has warned the public about a surge in online job scams. According to the agency, fraudsters are using deceptive recruitment messages on chat apps and social media to lure people with promises of high-paying remote work. Now, these schemes often begin with small payouts to build trust, then escalate to demands for deposits in exchange for larger earnings. In response, Senator Mark Villar filed a resolution calling for a Senate inquiry into the scams, citing a sharp rise in complaints. And to discuss this morning, we are joined now by Attorney Philbert Catalino Flores III, Director of the Enforcement and Investor Protection Department at the Securities and Exchange Commission. Magandang umaga po sa inyo, Attorney.
Magandang umaga po sa inyo lahat.
Ay, una-una, tell us all about these job scams. What are they selling? How are they getting to people? And how many are being affected by those fraudulent scams?
Okay. It's like this. They usually offer through text, or sometimes there is a posting online to social media for a job offer. Ang gagawin lang nila is to text lang or just like a certain product, etc. Then there's a promise that they will be paid for such services. But that's the first thing. And then they will be given certain task to do. We call this job offer scam or tasking and recharging scam. And then after that, they will be asked to pay a certain amount for PIN to release their payments. They will be asked to pay taxes for BIR. They will be asked for to remove them from the blacklist of the SEC or even the AMLAC. They will do those things, making all excuses for you to provide additional money, to deposit money, to release, so that you'll be able to get your money.
Ito ho ba yung parang minsan nagpapadala sa mga messaging apps na parang you can work for this online shopping platform for this and that. Tapos, magkano po kaya ang binibigay dito sa una?
Usually, ang nag-uumpisa yan, mga 1,500 lang, mga ganyang kahina lang ng mga presyo. Eventually, it increases to 5,000 hanggang sa yung tao, because nagbigay na, di ba? Ang Pinoy kasi pag naibigay na, parang, uy, sayang. Yun na lang naman ang susunod na requirement. So, the psychology behind, alam nila yan eh. Kasi nagbigay na ako, sayang na yun, baka para ma-recover ko. Yun yung ginagawa ng mga scammers. Inaano yung nagbigay na eh, sayang. Baka ito na lang yung last requirement. Makukuha ko na lahat. So, doing that, so yung pinaasa yung tao. So, these are jobs na yun nga, sa online lending or sometimes meron pa sa mga, yung mga shopping apps na kunyari magla-like, mag-advertise, will do these things para as a job.
Oh, so kung wari po ako yung nagbigay ng 1,500, magkano po usually nakukuha? I mean, in return?
Usually binibigyan ka, sa trabaho mo kasi may mga likes yan na makakakuha ka ng 2,500, 5,000, ganyan ang mga kapalit niya. So because of that, masabihin nila, ay, yung 5,000 mo may tax yan. So sisingilin ka ng tax. Tapos, mali yung yung account number mo. So to release that, para makuha mo yung pera mo, kailangan mo ng ganito, ng amount, additional amount. Ganun lang, to get the 5,000. Yun yung problema doon. To get the 5,000 plus the original na yung binayad mo, ganun yung sasabihin nila. 5,000 plus yung whatever yung amount pa.
Okay. Paano nyo po ito na-monitor? Marami po ba nagre-report sa inyo? And how much is the biggest that you know that people have lost because of these scams?
Okay, we're talking of this tasking recharging. Ang pinakamalaki na nakita namin, 150,000. Okay? Pero dun sa isang scam, which is the advance fee scam, yun, mas malaki ang nakuha doon. As high as 250,000 nakukuha doon.
Yung 150,000 saan po? Saan po ulit?
Yung advance fee scam naman. Iba naman.
Advance pay scam.
The advance fee loan scam. Kumbaga, nangungutang ka, magbabayad ka pa. Yung ganon. Di ba, ang regular na, pag naglo-loan ka sa lending app, for example, all their expenses, all the admin charges, all in accordance with the Truth in Lending Act, ibabawas yun sa proceeds. So for example, nangutang ka ng 5,000, 1,000 ang admin, ang makukuha 4,000. But you'll be paying 5,000. That's the regular process. But the moment nang hingi na sila ng 1 centavo, kahit magkano, that's already an advance fee scam. Kasi walang gagawang legitimate na lending company na din. So, yan po. Yung tasking and recharging, ganun din po.
Iba po ito, no? Ito yung
Gumagamit
online.
po sila ng mga legitimate corporations. So what we did is to campaign na check with SEC, of course, para makita mo kung legit na corporations. Now, they move up. Sinabi nila, okay, they're using legitimate corporations now. Lending companies or even Ayala Corporation. Naglalagay sila ng mga ganyan na tao. So now, nilalagyan namin yung check. We have an SEC check app which the public can check if that corporation is registered. Merong warning kagad to, advanced fee scam, ganyan. Yung task and recharging is ganito. Para na ano na sila, uy, may ano kagad. Gretchen, ang nangyayari, nakakatanggap yan ng random text lang. Kasi may mga scammers talaga na we found out with PAOK and the NTC that they're using a mobile transmitter that transmit in a certain area text messages na mayroong mga link that the unsuspecting victims will just click and yun na. Tuloy-tuloy niya, offeran ka na ng job, offeran ka na ng loans or kukunin ng details ng ano mo, nakalagay sa phone mo. So we are always asking people to really think before you click. Yun ang importante doon. This is the first defense. Verify kagad sa lahat sa bangko mo or sa lending sa payment portal para ma-verify mabuti yan. Kasi para lang hindi kayo mabigyan.
Then dito po sa may kasi yung po yung nabanggit ninyo, yung online lending po yan, di ba? Meron naman po yung sa trabaho.
Yes.
Anong klaseng trabaho po? I mean, I believe it's somewhere along the lines of sales.
Yes.
Ano po yung kalakaran naman ho doon, yung pinapagawa sa mga tao?
Pinapagawa, usually pinapa-advertise to, pinapopost, nagpapa-like doon as if merong mga bumibili doon, nag-review sila ng product, yung mga gano'n. Pinare-review sa kanila. Pwede rin sila ang nag-advertise, sila ang nagpo-post sa kanilang mga personal profiles online. Yan po yung mga pinagagawa. It's really more of advertising, marketing yung style.
Tapos doon po, meron pong hinihingi ding registration fee?
Sa umpisa, wala. Siyempre, kasi tatrabaho ka nga, hihingan ka pa. So, hindi. So, because of the, wala kang usually walang hihingin sa'yo sa umpisa. Tapos kapag nakapagtrabaho ka na and you know you earned 5,000 or 1,500 kunyari, hihingan ka muna unti-unti. Ganyan ng 200 for this kasi ganyan yan. Bayad ka naman, tapos bibigay sa'yo yung 1,700. Bibigay yung 1,500 sa'yo. Yeah, bibigay sa'yo yan. Tapos yung susunod, bibigyan ka ng bagong task. May ganun po. May style naman na, hindi. Para makuha mo yan, eto pa, may bago kang task. Hindi mo pa nakukuha yung first task mo na nagawa. Bibigyan ka ng bago. At ang inaano na, nakadikit itong second task to sa first. Para makuha mo yung first, eto gagawin mo. Yung tao, tuloy pa rin dahil sabi naman, nag-click lang naman ako, nag-advertise lang, kumbaga wala masyado. Pero nagbigay ka na ng mga certain amount, hahabulin mo. So, ganun po nangyayari. It's really more of the psychology of the person, kung paano ka nahuhook in.
Paano po kung hindi na po kayo nagre-reply? So kung wari, kayo po ay kumita sa una, tapos binigyan pa kayo ng additional task, tapos kumbaga you stop communicating. Meron po ba kayong nababalitaan na hinahabol pa o hinaharas?
Sa tasking and recharging sa awa ng Diyos, wala. Sa advance fee scam, meron. Papadalang ka, di ba nangungutang ka kunyari, tapos hindi mo tinuloy dahil nakita mo na nanloloko lang kasi nanghingi ng amount. Papadalang ka kunyari na ng NBI subpoena, papadalang ka ng court order to appear, mga ganyan. May mga PNP, ganyan ang ginagawa nila. Tatakutin ka na para ituloy mo yung loan. Imagine mo, pinipilit ka mag-loan. So, hindi tama yung gano'n. So, ganyan. Sa advance fee scam, may gano'n. Sa tasking and recharging, in fairness naman wala na kasi alam nila na nakatunog ka na. So, medyo alam na nila yon, stop sila kagad, usually.
Okay, bilang
Wala
panghuli
pa
ho,
kami nakita na nagtuloy-tuloy na pinaharas pa, wala. Pero sa advanced fee scams, meron.
Sa nakikita niyo ho, no, sino po yung pinaka-vulnerable dito sa mga scams na to? Would you parang identify a pattern? Do you identify a pattern? At pangalawa, ano po yung mga red flags na, dapat iwasan ng publiko? Lahat po ba yan ng mga text, na mga offers ay huwag i-entertain? Is it safe to say that, just pag dinaan sa SMS, talagang huwag nang tignan, huwag nang basahin, huwag nang tignan na legitimate ang mga offer na ito?
Okay. Yung sa first question mo, ano siya ano ba to? Sorry na ano lang ako. Sa first question is, ano naman siya, teka lang.
Kung may vulnerable ho na sector o age
Sa first
group.
question na ano namin niya, usually yan yung may mahilig. Usually yan, kabataan yan, na may gustong kumita ng extra. Kasi, di ba, kumitang extra That can be anyone. Yung gusto lang kumita ng extra. Usually nakikita niya yan kasi online yan, yung mahilig mag-online. So yan ang usual Wala talagang profile na yan. Usually yan yung mga may extra time na gawin. Maaaring wala siyang trabaho existing ngayon or wala siyang ginagawa.
Tumataya na lang doon.
Sayang. Extra to di ba? Extra trabaho to, kikita ka. So,
tama ho.
Yun ang kahit naman sino pwedeng maging victim. Okay, pagdating naman dun sa sa pangalawang ang ginagawa namin, ganito yan, mama. Pagka nakatanggap ka ng text or may nakita ka online to click this for more information, I would prefer na wag na muna. You investigate further. Kasi usually they use legitimate companies, especially kung text. Usually yan, pagka ang scam, pag dinala ka na sa Telegram, yan, kabahan ka na. Sa Telegram, lagi ang mga scammers. Nasa Telegram sila. Yung messaging app. Pag dinala ka na doon, kabahan ka na.
Bakit mo doon? Pwede kasi mag-delete ng trace.
Kasi walang trace Yun ang problema natin dyan. Okay? Ang sa amin pagka ganun nangyayari, we want the people to report agad sa PNP, sa NBI, sa amin, turo kagad sa NTC. We have active cooperation with them, with the National Privacy Commission as well. Kumbaga, meron kaming active cooperation with them. I'm not saying just active talaga kasi we continuously work with them, and in fact mayroon kami mga raids in the past. So yun po yung nangyayari. So we want people to really investigate first. Kung pwede, wag munang mag-click. Alamin nila yon. Especially kung may text messages ng unknown people. Minsan nakalagay pa doon, talagang company, yung kanilang service provider na nakalagay doon. This might be bogus. Galing sa bangko nila, lalabas na. This might be bogus. They really have to verify first. That's the first step. O kunyari, na-click na nila, napunta na sila doon, nakita na sila. Then, ask question. Meron ba kayong secondary license? Meron ba kayong Paano kikita dito? Anong account ginagamit? Pagdadaling ka na sa isang messaging app, Telegram usually yan, or kailangan imbitahan ka pa para pumasok sa isang chat group, dapat magdalawang isip ka na. Kasi hindi dapat ganon. Kasi magbibigay ka ng pera or kikita ka or babayaran ka. Dapat alam mo na yung pagpupunta mo, kilala mo, nakita mo kahit pa. Yung ganun. Ito pa kung sa chat group, ang ginagawa nila, may magte-thank you doon. Sila. Kunyari, 10 yun nandun sa chat group. Ikaw lang mag-isa doon. The rest ay kasama nila. So may magte-thank you doon. Uy, natanggap ko na, etc. So ikaw naman ay kuya, totoo to, legit kasi may ibang taong bayaran na. So yung ganon. Pero remember, you're the only one there.
Correct.
The rest are in on the scam. So you want people to really be
more
conscious
vigilant.
of those.
Yes. O kaya ho pala ako, ang daming GC bigla. Napapasok ako doon. Okay, in the meantime, maraming salamat po.
Ma'am, pakiusap ko lang kung meron kayo, kunyari may mga GCs kaya, just get the accounts. Importante kasi we have the Anti-Financial Accounts Scamming Act.
Yes
that
po,
we
yes.
can now trace, we can use to trace who owns those, etc. etc. Eto mama, sorry medyo kailangan mapaalam sa mga taong bayan.
Ma'am,
Yung
sir, konti na lang kasi
yung AFASA,
mauubusan na po tayo ng oras. Just make it quick.
yung AFASA po, ang kinakasuhan doon yung Yule account. So pag ikaw, meron kami nahuli na nagpinag-register lang siya ng account, ng payment portal account. Pinag-open ng account. Pero wala siyang control. Nakakasuhan ka. May criminal liability po yan under the AFASA. At ikaw din ang kakasuhan ng lahat sa scams. Dahil nagamit ka sa scam. So, importante po yung AFASA law na yan, na alam ng mga tao na huwag kayong magpapagamit to open an account.
Okay, maraming salamat po sa
Thank you,
for entertaining us and indulging us this morning. We have Attorney Philbert Catalino Flores, the third Director of the Enforcement and Investor Protection Department at the Securities and Exchange Commission. When we return, let's circle back to the big story of the day, the Senate's decision to archive the impeachment of Vice President Sara Duterte. And to discuss the implications of this decision, we'll be having on the show former IBP President, Attorney Domingo Cayosa. Stay tuned. Morning Matters will be back. Good morning, I'm Gretchen On here at Morning Matters. We talk about the most pressing issues and give you the context behind the headlines. With a supermajority vote of 19, the Senate decided to archive the impeachment case of Vice President Sara Duterte. Those who voted yes to archive the complaint were Senate President Chis Escudero, Senate President Pro Tempore Jingo Estrada, and Majority Leader Joel Villanueva. Also voting in favor were Senators Bato de la Rosa, Amy Marcos, Raffy Tulfo, Pia Cayetano, Loren Legarda, Erwin Tulfo, Cynthia Villar, Grace Poe, JV Ejercito, Sonny Angara, Nancy Binay, Lito Lapid, Mark Villar, Alan Peter Cayetano, Bongo, and Rodante Marcoleta. Those who voted no were Senate Minority Leader Tito Soto, Senators Risa Ontiveros, Kiko Pangilinan, and Bam Aquino. The lone senator who abstained from the vote was Senator Ping Lacson. With the Senate voting to archive the impeachment complaint, legal experts are weighing in on its constitutional implications. And for that, we are now joined by former IBP President and constitutional law expert, Attorney Domingo Cayosa. Magandang umaga po sa inyo.
Morning, Gretchen. Magandang umaga sa nanonood na nakikinig sa iyong programa.
Ang unang-unang tanong ko po sa inyo, after hours of debate, ano po ba yung pagkakaiba talaga ng pagte-table sa pag-archive? Kasi dahil, going through the whole process, syempre nagsimula po ito sa motion to dismiss ni Senator Marcoleta, citing the Supreme Court's ruling on unconstitutionality and the failure to adhere to due process, saying hilaw po itong sinaing. And then, ito po ay na-amend, naging motion to archive. That was a motion by Senator Villanueva because the Senate did not acquire jurisdiction. And it was null and void. The articles of impeachment were null and void ab initio. But the other recourse was from Senator Soto with a motion to table the dismissal, which became a motion to archive. So sa inyong pananaw, sa dalawang recourse na po yan, may pagkakaiba po ba yun?
Yes, may pagkakaiba. Yung motion to table, para bang hihintayin lang muna nila na ma-resolve yung more basic or more fundamental issues at hand. Yun nga yung decision ng Supreme Court. So it's much easier to go back to the main motion kung na-table lang yan. Yung archive kasi, they resolve it already and put it on record, but it stays there. It's not as easy to revive it. Theoretically, as the Senate President said, well, they can revive that in case the Supreme Court changes its mind and reverses itself. But that's easier said than done. Still, that was not the revival, in case the Supreme Court would reverse itself, was not included in the final motion. It was simply to archive. And as Senator Soto has said, and even Senator Alan Cayetano, it is practically good as dead. So, you know, the other one, if we look very closely at the current decision of the Supreme Court, ang sinabi nila doon, if you don't act on it or you archive it, it is deemed terminated. So that would already be the impeachment case for the year. So knowing this, kung sakasakali nga na mag-reverse ang Supreme Court, suntok sa buwan yan, but kung mangyari, at there is an attempt to revive what was already archived, sasabihin naman ng respondent, sabi ng Supreme Court, pag na-archive, deemed terminated na. Yan na yung first impeachment case. Maghintay kayo for another year. So these are the nuances na hindi malinaw o hindi masyadong naipaliwanag dun sa mga nakikinig. But we have to respect it. These are politicians. You know, it's their call.
Okay. Kanina nakikinig po ko ng programa ni Ted Filon, no? Parang hinalintulad niya po ito sa isang bangkay na hindi mo muna nilibing, pero parang nilagay mo muna sa freezer para sakasakaling magbaliktad yung desisyon, pwede mo pang ilabas. Pero, I mean, do you think that it is as good as dead? What are the chances of the Supreme Court reversing its ruling? Because Senator Marcoleta was saying or challenging people on that floor to name cases where the Supreme Court voted unanimously and then changed its mind. Meron po ba kayo naaalala na may mga ganong instance?
Well, siguro siya, he said in his 40 years as litigation lawyer, wala siyang alam na ganon. But kami, we know there are a number of Supreme Court cases, more recent and even in the distant past, binaliktad ng Supreme Court ang sarili nila. So most lawyers know that. Even the Supreme Court acknowledges it is not infallible. And every now and then they reverse themselves, sometimes over a number of years, sometimes just a number of months. So, meron pa ngang mga accusation na flip-flopping decision, di ba? So it's a fact. It may be a long shot, but it's a possibility.
There's always room for the DSSC to act another way than expected, right? But I want to go to the decision of the Supreme Court, the 97-page decision. What are your thoughts on, first of all, the facts involved in the case? Because meron din pong kahapon, may statement po yung ABS-CBN, and it clarified that it never said in any article that the House of Representatives transmitted the articles of impeachment to the Senate without a plenary vote. So nilinaw po yan dahil sinight po ng Supreme Court decision itong ABS-CBN article. So paano po pag ganun, pag mali yung mga facts in the decision itself?
Well, kung mali yung mga facts, maari at malamang magkakamali yung logic mo at saka yung decision mo. And that's why it's good that you tinutumbok mo yon. Because we concede that the Supreme Court can change its mind on policy matters, jurisprudence. Wala namang problema yan. It happens. Poder nila yan, di ba? As a matter of fact, they correct themselves, they change themselves every now and then. But whether you're the Supreme Court or any kind of court, dapat hindi ka nagkakamali. Dapat hindi mo nami-misappreciate o nami-misrepresent yung facts. Kasi black is black, white is white dapat yan eh. You should not commit an error. So that's very basic. That's where may problema dito. And we hope that the Supreme Court will review it again, especially in the light of all this, yung records ng House of Representatives, malinaw naman na dumaan yan sa proseso. Present naman sa plenaryo yung fourth complaint, yung resolution, yung sinasabing dinelay nila, inupuan nila. Ngayon, malinaw din na they acted on it within 10 calendar days. So yung mga sinasabi, and now the worst thing is yung sinasite nilang ABS-CBN, sinasabi nga, wala kaming sinabing ganyan, hindi ganyan yung ibig sabihin. So at the very least, they should look at this. But and if and when you are wrong, di ba, Gretchen, the highest form of integrity is you correct yourself.
Doesn't it give the impression na medyo minadali po itong decision? Dahil nga ho, yung pagsinsin do sa facts parang kulang pa eh. Kung magkakamali po sila sa ganong bagay, I mean, doesn't it give that kind of impression that this was hasty on the part of the Supreme Court, the court of last resort? And does this happen often to your knowledge and to your experience watching cases go by?
Well, we hope that, and we wish that the Supreme Court resolves cases fast enough, because in our country, it is a given fact, and statistically, talaga masyadong mabagal ang mga pagdesisyon ng mga korte. There's very slow pace of justice in our country. But having said that, ito kasi hindi ordinaryong kaso ito, Gretchen. It has, as they say, transcendental importance. It will impact not only in this case, but the future workings of different branches of government. At ito usaping korupsyon. Ito usaping accountability of high public official. So considering the controversy, the parties involved, and the nature of the case, maaaring makita natin, relative to other similar cases, masyadong minadali. Hindi na sila nangonsulta sa mga eksperto, hindi na sila nag-oral argument, at nagulantang na lang tayo. Sa matter of days, they were able to resolve after the submission of the House of Representatives, at nagulantang lang tayo. Plus, sinabayan pa na kahit hindi pa ito final, immediately executory na. So, I could understand why many are raising at the very least eyebrows dito. At saka, pina-question nila. It could have been done better.
And speaking of those questioning the Supreme Court ruling, a group of lawyers, academics, and citizens led by former Justice Antonio Carpio and Conchita Carpio Morales have submitted to the Supreme Court a status quo petition or status quo ante-order to request the Supreme Court na maghinay-hinay muna, mag-stop-stop muna, and kumbaga parang aralin ito ulit at ilagay sa debate, to which I think the Supreme Court responded to, na nireiterate niya this was immediately executory. But this is not final, right? I mean, your thoughts on that exchange?
It's within the discretion of the Supreme Court to keep maintain or to direct that its decision, even if not yet final, is immediately executory. But this is under exceptional circumstances. Mas lalong nagtataka ang taong bayan o yung nakakaalam ng mga nuances of constitutional law and the proceedings of the Supreme Court na bakit nyo minadali ito? Alam naman nila at alam natin nga at hindi pa final. So it's just a question of a matter of a few days, which is all controlled by the Supreme Court when they will resolve the MR. Pero reiterate ulit yung immediately executory ito. Sinabi na nila yung nauna eh. So doon makikita mo na ano ba ang gustong mangyari ng Supreme Court dito. So are they telegraphing something, or they just want the senators to understand what they already plainly said at the very start. So that again, nag-speculate ang mga nakakaalam, pinagmumulan uli ng kanilang mga issues. But there's still hope. It may be suntok sa buwan, but as pointed out by one of the senators, and all lawyers know, there have been instances where the Supreme Court reversed itself, even in a unanimous decision. So we continue to pray, and for those who are advocating for the impeachment process to continue, i-focus natin ngayon sa Supreme. Balik tayo sa Supreme Court. Kumbaga, bumalik din yung bola eh. And we hope that in due time, after considering everything, and this time doing it better, ma-resolve nila one way or the other.
Regarding the Supreme Court ruling, there was another debate on operative facts because in that decision, it seems that Supreme Court also changed what was required for an impeachment complaint to be declared as legal and valid, right? For example, yung pag-submit at saka yung pag-present ng evidence, may argument po doon na dapat kung may pagbabago, ito ay applied prospectively at hindi regressively. What are your thoughts on that? I mean, paano nga po ba pag may binago yung Supreme Court sa kanyang procedure and ruling, what happens to the other cases in retrospect that have been based on previous Supreme Court cases and jurisprudence?
Well, yung doctrine of operative fact, yung bang pagbaguhin mo yung rules, dapat prospective yun, huwag mong i-apply retroactively. That's an embodiment of the clear fairness rule. Which, whether it's the Supreme Court or anybody, kahit sa basketball yan, ganun di ba? So, fairness, basic fairness. Doon, we cannot argue against yung puna ng marami. Of course, if you look at so many decisions of the Supreme Court, there were exceptional cases where they did not make that applicable. Pero dito, malinaw ho kasi. At hindi lang ang kanilang pinapalitan yung ordinaryong kontrata o yung mga private interests. These are public interests. These are constitutional bodies with constituent powers. So, matindi ang puna dyan. Pangalawa, if you look at it also, the Supreme Court also added the requirement na kahit yung express mode, the third mode of initiating an impeachment complaint, which is present it to the plenary and they vote on it, sinasabi ngayon ng Supreme Court, kahit doon, dapat bigyan mo rin ng pagkakataon yung respondent na mag-explain at sumagot. Wala yun sa konstitusyon Pag ganun ang pamamaraan, you leave it to the Senate, and it's in the Senate where the respondent has to answer. In this particular case, the Senate Impeachment Court has assumed jurisdiction, it has convened, and pinasagot na, sumagot na nga ang Vice President. That's where the due process is. Hindi pa kasama dito yung sinasabi na they are harking on due process of law. It refers to life, liberty, and property. Public office is not life, liberty, or your property. You're not entitled to it. It's an office of public trust. So, mukhang nakalimutan nila yon. So, matindi yung puna, but at least now they have a chance to revisit their ruling.
One thing is for sure, meron pa pong chance na mag-resurrect ito kahit patay na.
Yes, of course, all of this worry, speculation, if there's political will, the senators are politicians, di ba? Kahit, sa totoo lang, kahit mag-reverse ang Supreme Court at sabihin, tama naman pala yun, kung ayaw talaga ng mga senador, there's not much we can do about it.
And they could also not follow the Supreme Court ruling, right? They choose not to follow because there have been instances of that. Okay, maraming salamat po sa inyo, Attorney, for joining us today and helping us have some clarity over those hours of debate on the Senate plenary floor. We have Attorney Domingo Cayosa, again a constitutional law expert and from IBP. Let's get more reactions following the developments at the Senate. We have Kiko Aquino D, the grandson of the late Senator Ninoy Aquino and co-convener of Pro-Democracy Coalition Tindig Pilipinas. I believe he is part of that group that thumbed down the decision to archive within the Senate floor. Magandang umaga sa iyo, Kiko.
Hi, magandang umaga, Gretchen. Good morning sa lahat ng mga nanonood at nakikinig po ngayon.
Okay, unang-una, kamusta? Ano nga ba nangyari doon? Nakita na lang namin sa screen yung pinapalabas kayo. But what happened?
Well, I mean, pinapalabas pero in a happy accident, layunin naman talaga naming mag-walk out eh. So at least nag-coincide po yung ginawa ng Senate Sergeant at Arms sa balak naman natin. Ayun po, I think we had been there since the start of the hearing ng mga 3 o'clock po, and I think that happened, what, 8? I forget, medyo magulo na sense of time ko po. Pero ayun po, I remember distinctly po there's a point during the session na si Senator Vic Zubiri requested clarification kay presiding officer Senate President Chis Escudero na ano ba yung pwedeng gawin ng nasa gallery, at yung malinaw na sinabi ni Senate President Escudero ay bawal tumawa, bawal mag-comment, bawal magpumalakpak, no? So bawal mag-ingay. And yung grupo namin aware naman na while hopeful, aware naman na pinaikot nga yung bilangan na 20 and 4, naging 19, 4 and 1. So, a little better than we were told. Pero yung grupo namin na aware na yun, we felt that we would have wanted within the rules, that within the allowable rules, to show our displeasure with the impending decision. So, we chose the thumb down gesture po and then walked out, and yun po, that's what happened.
What were your observations there from the gallery with the string of debates and the temperament? Because, it was a motion to dismiss that became a motion to table, that became a motion to archive. What was the temperature like over there? At syempre, may mga nakikita kayo, yung mga interaction ng mga senador with each other, mga reactions nila. What did you notice?
The thing that immediately comes to mind is I believe si Senators Bongo, Robin Padilla, and Bato de la Rosa were seated together, and then I think jokingly naman si Senator Marcoleta told them, yes tayo dito, yes tayo dito. So I think that was a funny moment naman po. Pero yun po, I think honestly I don't have a point of comparison po. Ito po yung first and probably the last time na manonood na magiging part po ako even in an audience capacity to a Senate plenary hearing. I thought that I personally felt I learned a lot, no. So ako I try to be someone who's easily convinced, no. So parang when good arguments are put before me, I like to think na it can sway my opinion, no. And so yun, parang I was impressed with si Senator Marcoleta, the ease with which he explained his position. I appreciated si Senator Pia Cayetano with the way na parang kumpanya niya, how she explained from a lawyer's perspective, ito yung ganito tinatrato yung Supreme Court decision. And even though I disagreed with a lot of the points, I appreciated the forcefulness of Senate President Escudero's explanation of his vote. I remember when that was on our side during the time of the struggle against President Arroyo. So I appreciated all of that, but also I would have wanted to hear just an emphasis po on why are we talking about what we're talking about, no? And yung impeachment, the reason na na-initiate ito in the first place was nagbaba ng grave threats si VP Sara Duterte, at saka nagbaba siya ng grave threats, and also there's an issue of corruption involving DepEd in the middle of an education crisis. So yung urgency lang ng issue na yun was something I found lacking, and also yung the suggestion that kaming mga mamamayan, kaming mga citizens na nag-file, na we followed everything, no. Yung mga pinunto ni Senator Marcoleta involved shortcomings on the part of the House of Representatives. We can identify the failure of the Senate to follow through on the forthwith term in our Constitution, and even in the Supreme Court may mga factual errors na pinoint out dun sa decision nila. Pero parang bakit yung mamamayan yung pinaka-vilify dito, na sa pagkakaalam ko, wala pa namang pinunto na maling ginawa. Wala kaming maling ginawa sa mga impeachment complainant as far as the process is concerned. No? And yet, parang for whatever reason, we're the ones being denied the process. So, yun po.
Actually, ilang beses nga sinabi ng mga senador, no, that they have been vilified online in preposterous ways. Parang sinasabi naman nila they have been following due process or respecting the rule of law. But what is up next for Tindig Pilipinas now that with the decision to archive? Is this, as quite of a sign of hope for you guys? At least hindi pa siya talagang tinuluyang pinatay. Or do you see this as, more or less the same as already
Well, I
dead?
don't know po, parang as Christians, we're supposed to believe in the resurrection. No? Pero yung, I don't know po, yung archived it was a strange term nung ginamit sa House of Representatives and kung ano-anong interpretation yung ginamit. Parang at that point, it was effectively dismissed. Ewan ko kung yun din yung magiging interpretasyon ng Supreme Court sa pag-archive ng Senado kung sakali mang kailangan po siyang bigyan ng interpretation. So yun, pag-aaralan po natin. The 97-page decision of the Supreme Court. I think si Senator Alan Cayetano pointed out, gave a decent summary po of like the new rules surrounding impeachment. But contrary to his position, I think not all of these rules are innocent. No, I think na big problem po yung rule na you can only file an impeachment over things that the impeachable official did while in office. Kasi nga, one of the classic questions on impeachment is, what if the president, our sitting president, is revealed to have had sort of done, parang espionage or some kind of treasonous activity prior to becoming president? Does that mean we cannot impeach the sitting president? So parang that's a strange principle to incorporate. So, yun po, I think we need to study the rules. We need to really figure out what we take this archiving to mean.
Correct.
But like right now, nasa Boy Scout circle po tayo for another protest activities. But yun, in the coming weeks, we'll be studying. And I think everyone, even the Senate, was saying that Feb 6 date mentioned by the Supreme Court is fresh in everyone's mind. Definitely, we're cognizant of that as well. But we want to understand and really game out how the new rules of impeachment will come to play if we make that decision nga po to file again later on.
Unahan nyo na sa Feb 6. Lahat na magpa-file.
Baka mag-camp out kami. Parang movie ticket. Parang pipilahan natin yung movie tickets, diba? We might set up
Para
something
siguradong credible yung impeachment complaint come February 6. But you're right, no? The larger context here is that this may set a precedent to future filing of impeachment complaints. And how do you hold now our public officials accountable if it will be that complicated to go through the impeachment process itself? Bilang huling tanong, you are a convener. I'd just like to go to another topic. We had Senator Trillanes on several of our programs here, somehow indicating a little bit of tampuhan or rift with Vice President Leni Robredo when it comes to, I guess, 2028 and also the ICC, their stance on the ICC and all. Sinagot na yan ni Barry Gutierrez. Pero kayo, what are you doing to somehow come up with a united opposition for 2028?
So both Senator Trillanes and Mayor Leni Robredo are people I hold in very high esteem. So I haven't spoken to either of them po about I haven't spoken to Senator Trillanes about his comments, nor have I really heard anything from the camp of VP Leni Robredo. And to be honest po, yung tindig I guess we're in a way a bit of a clearinghouse. No? Parang there are certain elements of the opposition that are part of our coalition and they can talk here. But we're just a small part of the equation po. I think in the end that as far as 2028 is concerned, I understand na sina Mayor Leni Robredo really wants to focus on her next 3 years as mayor of Naga City. And if the time for discussion for 2028 will come, when that time comes, we will be very happy to participate, be very happy to facilitate any such discussions. But I think it's also worth recognizing that as a civil society organization, since we're not the ones sort of putting ourselves out there for public office, hindi rin, parang limited lang din po yung role natin. So parang we are, parang we're here to facilitate, we're here to make our views heard, we're here to make stands heard, but this is really something for Vice President Leni Robredo and the other personalities of the opposition to work on.
Make your voice heard. You certainly did yesterday with a thumbs down over the decision of the Senate.
Not voice, bawal
Hindi
nga
pala,
magsalita.
bawal pala boses. Oo. Ano ba? Make your actions felt. Okay, maraming salamat sa iyo for joining us this morning. Right after that 6-hour debate on the Senate plenary floor, we have Kiko Aquino, the co-convener of Tindig Pilipinas.
Thank you very much.
And that is it for this Thursday morning. That wraps up today's episode of Morning Matters. We hope we've given you the right start to your morning. Let's go ahead and make the day matter. My name is Gretchen Hall. We're One News, all sides, all the time.